Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
Welcome. This is America's Heroes Group Roundtable with partner Jesse Brown VA Works. Today is Saturday, August 14th, 2021, and August is National Wellness Month. My name is Sean Claiborne, Army National Guard veteran and proud citizen, and filling in for Cliff Kelly and Dr. Damon Arnold. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith. Our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. Now, we have a great show for you today. One thing we want to talk about in line with National Wellness Month is things that pertain to veterans, news and information that you need to know about, make your lives better and healthier and more profitable for yourself. Now, on the line we have Dr. Deepa Yohanna. Now, she's a primary care attending physician at Jesse Brown VA. Ms. Yohanna, do we have you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well today.
That's great. That's great. Now, one of the things that you do with veterans at the VA, explain to us what this initiative is about the JBVA, the Jesse Brown VA Black Lives Mentoring Committee Program, and what is the effort to promote diversity in medicine and in healthcare?
All right. Well, I wanted to start also just by giving a little background on where all of this came from. So we have a task force at Jesse Brown called Jesse Brown for Black Lives. That task force was created last year, 2020, after the death of George Floyd.
Wow.
We profoundly felt his death at our institution because many of our employees, 50% in fact of our employees, are Black, and many of the veterans that we serve are also Black. So you can just imagine, like, after George Floyd died, just the sadness that was felt. And we were tired of doing nothing about it. So we had the support of our hospital higher-ups or executive staff, and we were allowed to form this wonderful task force called Jesse Brown for Black Lives. The task force is far-reaching, and we do many things. In addition to, acknowledging like the racial trauma that our Black citizens and Black veterans have been through, we also recognize the lack of Black physicians at our institution. And that's where the program that we have this summer, the mentoring program, comes in. So just a little bit of the demographics of Black physicians. According to the American Association of Medical Colleges data from the 2018 physicians, there's 5% of American physicians are Black, but according to the U.S. Census data, of all Americans, 14.1% of our population is Black. That is a large disparity.
Yes.
And that's something we felt compelled to better. And so, part of it is, could we do better hiring Black physicians? Well, I'm of course, but there's also the problem of there's just not enough Black physicians, period, to hire. So we created this program to mentor to our local Black students, Black and brown students, to help them on their way up to becoming a physician. It's a very long, arduous journey to get to being a physician, and there's many steps along that path, and we are helping with like one step of that path. So to do this right, we did partner with a local institution or foundation called the I Am Able Foundation, which is founded by a local Black physician, Dr. Lamenta Conway. She actually went to med school at Rush. She did residency at UIC, which is one of Jesse Brown's youth affiliate institutions. So, we partnered with her so that we did this right, and we, were able to serve our community the best. So the I Am Able Foundation provides the students a lot of the mentorship, but what they needed, which is an extremely important part of getting into medical school, is clinical experience, and that's what we give them. So we created this amazing program where the students come in, they're onboarded as volunteers, and they get to spend time with physicians in multiple different specialties, our subsurgical specialties, our medical specialties, primary care, They've even gotten to go into the OR and see some operations. They've seen how some procedures are done, like cardiac caths. So just a lot of different things. And on top of that, we also have some of the physicians giving like educational lectures about like diabetes, high blood pressure, and all of those basic topics.
Mm-hmm. And what's the age group for people in this program?
So this year was very broad. We have like as young as a 15-year-old young lady, and we also have a young man who is a post-bac. So he has already graduated college and is currently in graduate school. Mm-hmm. So it's like we had a total of 7 students this year, and it's like this extremely wide range.
Wow, I was really impressed by the number that we have 5%. Mm-hmm. Of doctors that are minorities. Is that minorities or African American or just minorities?
That's African American.
African American. Yeah. So 5%, but yet 14% of the people or the patients out there are minority. I was expecting a much bigger number. Has that number gotten better over the last few years? Is it a number that's shrinking? Because we're seeing one of the trends that we see across the country is that we see a lot less, particularly African American men going to college. That's been a trend that's been happening for the last 10, maybe 20 years or so. So do we see less minority doctors than we did 20 years ago? Or are we seeing more? Is that 5% number shrinking or is it growing? What's happening with that 5%?
I guess to be honest, I'm not sure. But I know that it certainly doesn't seem to be growing.
Okay.
When I went to medical school, my class was like about 120 in my class, and there was one black girl. That was it. Yeah.
Wow. So what are the barriers? What do you think are the barriers that prevent minorities? Because in my mind, as a college graduate, went to a top 20 university. I mean, when I think of African Americans, I think I see us doing better in a lot of different ways, particularly in the academic sector. But the numbers just don't show that.
No.
So what are the barriers? Especially when you have things like the military. The military is an excellent vehicle to get people educated because you can go, to join the National Guard like I did. You can go to a state school where you can get your tuition paid for. You can get, given a stipend while you're in school. We see also a trend in the military that there's a lot less African Americans going through the military to further their careers, to get into their professional world because you can get training in the military that corresponds with what you're learning in college.
Yes.
So what are the barriers? What are we seeing? And we hear a lot about STEM. We hear a lot about the push for STEM in the inner city and in schools where there's predominantly minorities. What's the barrier?
I know. I think one is just like the amount of time it takes a physician to become a physician, and additionally just the amount of preparation. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people know what the people that become physicians know what they need to do, and they start doing it in high school.
Okay.
And mostly you learn this from your friends and family. Well, if you're African American and there are only 5% Black or African American doctors, you're not going to be able to make that connection. So it's just like this never ending cycle of not able to encourage Black children to get into medical or try medical school if they don't have the exposure. So that's what we're, trying to do here is give them that exposure that they maybe would not have otherwise and give them the connections. Because also to get these clinical experiences, you usually do it through a family or a friend. Mm-hmm. But if there's not enough Black doctors and your parents may be well educated, but if there's only 5% African American doctors, then your well-educated parents might not know a doctor. Mm-hmm. So it's still a problem.
Mm-hmm. And do you see there is any kind of correlation or difference between how minorities get treated in healthcare as patients? Do you feel, and many people have talked about this or written about this topic, but from your experience, is there a disparity between what African Americans and minorities, people of color, experience when they go in to see the doctor versus what the major population?
Yes, unfortunately, I do think that's true. And then there are practices in medicine that are not correct. Actually, for example, at Jesse Brown, one of the JBVA, the Jesse Brown for Black Lives task force, one of the arms of that is the clinical committee. So we have a group of physicians and clinical staff, pharmacists, who are working towards removing like certain practices that are inequitable and really actually racist out of medicine.
You're saying racist practices, so doctors actually doing things that,
No, I wouldn't say that,
okay.
But like that, for example, when we calculate kidney function,
mm-hmm.
there is a formula that's used to calculate the kidney function, and it can be calculated different for African Americans, and this can lead to inequity.
Okay.
So there's a group of doctors at Jesse Brown that is working really hard to remove this practice of calculating kidney function differently for African Americans than other non-African American patients.
Okay.
So that can lead to inequity. So,
right. So there's a sensitivity then that the doctor needs to have. Because I remember one time I went to a doctor, a civilian doctor, and the doctor told me that, well, my blood pressure was too high. He said, well, black people didn't have higher blood pressure. And he kind of dismissed it like it was no big deal. So, you're a little bit higher than normal, but it's not a big deal. But so the sensitivity of like what exactly is current or what's normal for African Americans might be a little bit different physiologically for other groups, other demographic groups, for different reasons. Maybe it's environmental, maybe it's diet, maybe it's culture part of it.
So JBVA has also produced different lectures for our clinical staff, so they are being trained better to not think of African Americans differently simply because of their skin color.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happened in medicine. That's what happened, I think, with this, practice of calculating kidney function differently. So, we're trying to get away from that and educate people, there is only one standard for blood pressure,
mm-hmm.
and that should not be different for African Americans or white or Hispanic or Indian demographic.
That makes sense. Now, you're the first person that told me that. I mean, I've always been told from a lot of misinformation from people that have gone to the doctor, probably heard the same thing that I was told. But they were like, oh, yeah, African Americans have higher blood pressure. That's just the way it is. So, this is so he adjusted his prescriptions based on the fact that, you don't probably need to take anything right now. African Americans always have higher blood pressure. But the reality of it is, though, is that, when I start looking at what causes high blood pressure is from the little I know. I'm not a doctor or any medical professional whatsoever. But when you look at the diet and what people eat, so if you look at communities, African American communities, Latino communities, Latinx communities, when you go out to your grocery store, how close are you to a grocery store that serves healthy food, that has healthy things to eat, and then B, are you eating Takis and chips and Doritos, or are you eating fresh fruits and vegetables? Like what's the lion's share of your diet, and how does that play into the disparities in our health between communities that have more money and have a little more affluence and communities that don't have as much affluence?
Yes, that's a huge problem that we have, is just food deserts. So without having access to, healthy fruits and vegetables and grocery stores, and people can't eat that food. And that is a big part of the elevated blood pressure problem in some of our African American communities in Chicago.
And do you guys talk about that in your mentorship programs? Is that something that a person comes into your program? Are they getting that kind of realization about what they should be doing themselves and what their role is, or importance of it, and how important they are to the community?
So the mentorship program this year, we did not do those. We did teach them about high blood pressure, and then just what the diets and things, how to achieve high blood pressure medications, what medications to take, but we did not delve into the racial differences this year. But I do hope that in the future, because we're planning on doing this for hopefully for years to come until those numbers are equal. The population of African Americans to the population of Black American physicians is equal. But yeah, that's definitely something we want to expand on, because we do offer those lectures to our staff. And part of what we're doing to help the students kind of solidify their knowledge and help them get the confidence that they need when they're going to be going through their application process and their interviews is we're having a health fair at the VA for veterans who are already enrolled in healthcare at Jesse Brown VA August 18th and 19th. So we're hoping to so that the students can kind of spread their knowledge about what they've learned back to the community.
Mm-hmm. And how do you see the kids receiving this? Have they been very receptive to it, or do you feel that it's making an impact in the community?
Yes, I think they do. And I think with the lectures that they've had, they feel more prepared for their MCAT, which is a medical school entrance exam, for their basic sciences classes that they need to do well on in college to get into medical school. So I hope that also that now they have more confidence in themselves because they've, been given all this knowledge and they've been with physicians. They know what the day-to-day is like, and that they can take this, back to their communities, what they've learned, and even at least help their own families, like with what they've learned.
I think that's key. I think the approach you guys have taken, I think, really makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a very good idea, because I think exposure, your vision of what you can see, what is possible in your community, and what you can even do yourself, I think is critical for teaching kids that they can become doctors, they can become lawyers and politicians. You can basically be anything that you want to be, but you have to put the work into it. That's the thing, man. Becoming a doctor, as you know, you've done this, is one of the most difficult professions anyone can get into. You have to have one of the highest levels of training that we have on planet Earth, because you're putting people's lives in your hands. I mean, you can't just. I mean, it's easier probably a rocket scientist to being a medical doctor. I mean, when you actually really break it down, and minor training you guys have to go through. So, but letting people know that, hey, this is something that's critical, something that actually is important. And it's a very lucrative field. I mean, being a doctor is one of the highest paying jobs that you can get in the world. You know what I'm saying? I mean, at least in the United States. I know in other countries it's not necessarily the case, but that's something that, that by itself should attract a lot of people. But once again, if you don't have that vision, if you can't see the possibility of what it takes in order to get from point A to point B, it's just you're walled off from it. So I think it's a great thing that what you're doing is great.
So that's something that Dr. Lamento Conway, she's the founder of the I Am Able Foundation that we're working with. That's something that she says. You have to see it to be it. That's what we're giving them here. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So what is a success story that you have personally? It's something that maybe touched you or maybe opened your eye to say, okay, this is working. This is why I'm doing this every day.
I mean, the kids are they're very, very grateful of just, and then also, like, I would say actually more the physicians. Mm-hmm. It's good for people to interact with people of other races. Like, so the demographics of my personal, I'm a primary care doctor. So at the Jesse Brown main campus, the primary care doctors is actually 0 Black MDs or DOs in my group. So I think about 20 doctors. We do have Black physicians, but just not my group. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of doctors. So I think just like the brightness that these students bring to the day, their grit, their desire to learn, their interest, and how friendly and sweet they are. Like, I really can tell that my colleagues have enjoyed working with them. And, like, I have a feeling that a lot more physicians are going to join up to do this next year. And I also think, like, this program, it's one of the things that makes Jesse Brown so special. Mm-hmm. This kind of program is not something that's done at other facilities. It's not being done at other VAs. I have many physician friends. None of their hospitals are doing anything like this. So I think it's a very special thing what Jesse Brown is doing, and I hope that some of your listeners have had or were not getting their care at Jesse Brown or at the VA will realize that we want to help you. We really care about you, your community, your family, and we're really trying to make your life better.
I really appreciate all the information you share with us, Doctor. This was really eye-opening, and I think also, too, like you said, I think very profound that people really need to know. I mean, less than 5% of our doctors are African American. Yep. That's a pretty profound statement. That's the reality here in America today. And I think it's great that you're taking these kids and even young adults and helping them get into a profession that, once again, is necessary and needed, and breaking down those barriers between we are all flesh and blood. We're all human beings.
Exactly.
So everybody should get the same treatment, the same medical perceptions that some doctors might have that might think because they look at charts and numbers. And sometimes you forget that these are real people sitting in front of you. So I think that's a really great thing that you're doing. So we have to wrap this up. So we're getting ready to go into our break. So thank you for joining us, Miss Dr. Deepa Yohanna. And
then let me just plug so we are having the health fair August 18th and 19th. So if you are a veteran who gets care at Jesse Brown and you're going to be there for an appointment or just in the neighborhood, please drop by, say hello to our students, and cheer them on in their journey to becoming physicians.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.